Hey there, folks. Gip Erskine here, Values-Driven Coaching. Thank you for joining me on this journey on making value visible. This week we're going to be talking about the proposal that gets you chosen. So it's not where metrics alone are going to carry the weight. It's the effort and the visibility and the awareness of your presence that will carry the day. And so this is where you start to plant seeds and not just make connections and show up, but make noticeable contributions that actually make a difference with respect to how you perceive your property, you perceive the stakeholders, you perceive the conditions, the experiences, the environment, how it all integrates. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this week so that you can get a better advantage over your competition. The subtitle here, by the time they're comparing numbers, you've already lost the real competition. So let's jump in. So most proposals arrive after the winner's already decided. And whether or not that's true in most cases, I think it is a defensible argument that can be made with respect to how you are perceived in, are you just checking boxes by responding to RFPs and holding your fingers crossed? Or are you actually taking a stewardship view and actual exhibiting an effort of care? And selling is not about being careless and not about being careful, but it's about being caring. And if you demonstrate your care to your prospects, to the property teams, and it's not just the property manager or the APM or the property administrator or the chief engineer, it's the entire property team, and who a wise property manager considers part of their team, and that is security and general contractors and landscapers and janitorial. Everybody's a constituent. Everybody is part of the program, part of the team, part of the experience builders. So I'm teasing out what the outcome of this particular story is going to go, is that the second company out of two already showed us what could go wrong, and that's not a proposal, that's peace of mind. So let me take you through what happened to me several years ago. I went out to bid for security services, and it was on a mixed-use property in the North Dallas area, and two very, very qualified security companies were in the final running, and I happened to do kind of a side-by-side because the proposals were very, very accurate, complete, comprehensive, well-prepared, customized, and so it was great. So now it really was work for me to try to discern the differences and the advantages that that one may have had over the other. And so proposal A, I won't say which company it was, had just a very thorough professional proposal. They answered every single question, checked every single box. It was without fail a well-prepared proposal. They provided their coverage hours, the post orders, they showed their training and the qualifications, and they did their pricing by shift, just as I asked. It was great. But proposal B, done by a different contractor, a different security company who had a different angle and a different perspective. It was a little bit shorter and it was more expensive, but it referenced things that I didn't share with them. They happened to have come on site. They started asking some just general questions about the property, and they noticed that there was a blind spot in the loading dock area that could be a perfect cover for theft and crime and things like that. They had heard about a slip and fall in the garage 3 months earlier, and so they noted these things, and they provided a note to me with respect to that months ago, and I had remembered that it wasn't a pitch. It wasn't really trying to show a differentiation, show how they can outweigh the competition, but it was a fascinating way to just kind of get my attention, draw my attention to something that mattered to me. And I was delighted that somebody who was not on my payroll was taking notice And so by the time the proposal came in, they referenced those particular points. They addressed those in a way that can actually make a recommendation about, adding a camera here, widening the angle there, ensuring that the trip hazards for the slip and falls were removed, and if not removed, coned off and highlighted so that the occurrence of a trip and fall would not happen again. So it was like, that was pretty obvious to me. And again, it was pre-proposal positioning. And it doesn't mean really putting an extra effort on the marketing side or the branding side and a fancier cover page. And it just happened to be the evidence that was provided well in advance of the RFP going out. So I wanted to include them. I'm glad I did. And the fact that they had done their homework months in advance and planted that seed of awareness and of care and of stewardship, that's evidence of a partner, somebody who wants to be a partner of mine. And so I welcome those, because look, most vendors say they want to be your partner, but they don't know what the term partner actually means to a property manager. A partner means, how can I transfer my bandwidth, my energy, my focus, my time to you so that you can make my problems go away and make my life easier? How can you do that? That's a partner. How can you look out for my property, my stakeholders, my owner, my tenants, my other service partners? How can you show up in ways that go beyond your scope and become an extension of the management team and have my back when I'm not there? That's a partner. And so that pre-positioning before the RFP even goes out, and you never know if the RFP is going to go out, but you've planted those seeds meticulously and you took notice. So it really, really lands, and it resonates, and it's sticky. It stays with it. Property managers who choose partners like this can brag about you. They can actually share that experience with their friends. And it didn't take very much time. It didn't take very much effort. All it took was care. All it took was a little bit of conscientious thought that said, hey, by the way, you might want to know what's going on in your property. You might want to know about blind spots, and here's how to avoid some trip and falls in the future. So if you want to kind of establish some buckets that make it more organized and more methodical, here's 4 that you could categorize and start to put these things into their respective categories: evidence, outcomes, risk, and metrics. So if you could be thinking about those things, and as I start to distribute a healthier, more metrics-driven RFP, you're going to be well prepared in advance of that, so that you'll have these things in place, so that you're not just checking the box, but you're actually showing that you've already done the work, you've done the diligence, you've done the stewardship in your own body of work, in your own platform. So evidence, something specific and observable about this property. Not about properties in general and not about your company, this property. Outcomes, not what you're going to do, what changes because of it. Like inspections, great. You can inspect, great. Everybody can inspect. That's a task. What happens because of those inspections? Risk prevention is the outcome. How do you mitigate risk? Let's talk about that. The worry that the PM has but isn't saying out loud. Let's assume that whenever they're going to make a change, and whether it is because of poor performance, or because it's just time, or because someone's got a fancier mousetrap, what have you, change equals improvement in the mind of your client. And so change is not a lateral thing. They can make a change and make it lateral, and it's just a neutral outcome. The stakeholders don't benefit, they just see a new uniform. But how can you make change equate to less risk, equate to higher value? Metrics that matter. Cost per square feet. They are cost per square feet people. Do not forget that particular metric. Response times, retention rates, numbers that they can defend upstairs to asset management and property ownership. Be compiling these things, your safety records, your OSHA incidents, your EMR. It's going to come up, and you're going to see a lot more of that as this state of competition is changing. And there is a limit by which you can squeeze price down and still uphold a standard and still get the desired outcomes. But the differentiation, the ways that you can stand out, are going to be defined by those things that you track, the metrics that matter to property managers. And again, their price was not lower, it was higher. And I was able to substantiate that, yes, given a particular framework that showed the metrics that matter, but I was also able to share the story of stewardship to my owner. You know, the RFP is not the competition. And you shouldn't fear any RFP. You shouldn't, unless you're the incumbent who is under the, in the crosshairs because of potentially poor performance or poor communication or poor expectations management. But please, everyone of quality should be welcoming. Please go out to bid. Please talk to our competition. And please ask them about things that we are particularly proud of. Ask them where they stack up in their metrics that matter, just to make certain that there's apples to apples at a level. So consider the RFP as the scorecard for the competition that may have already happened. And if you're smart, you will have planted those seeds early. The meeting with the owner, it took about 4 minutes because the evidence was already done for me, and all I had to do was say, these are the guys that we're going with. So here's a challenge for you this week. Find one thing that nobody has flagged, no one has brought to your attention. Be that steward. Put on the hat of the prospect. Put on the hat of the tenants. Put on the hat of the owner. That's where property managers drop everything and they race. Put on that hat that brings certain things to their attention. It's not blame game. It's not calling people out. It is stewardship. It is awareness. It is caring. Walk the property. Check on an existing account. Find one specific site level observation no one's flagged. Bring it to the property manager with nothing attached. It's just, hey, FYI, I noticed this. I thought you might, this might be helpful to you. No pitch, no ask, just here. It's a gift. And so just remember this. Low price does have a floor. Things are going to break the more the downward pressure on price remains. And something is going to show up down the stream. And that's just needs to be brought to their attention that value is the bigger play. Value is where you want to take the conversation. And in future videos, you're going to be seeing a lot more about that discussion. And like next week, we're going to be talking about how to become go from a replaceable vendor who is just a cog in the wheel of life and a box checker. And I did my scope. I thought that was enough, to an invaluable service partner, one who shows that stewardship, one who gives that extra effort, one who shares something not with the expectation of a quid pro quo, but just because they care. You know what? I happen to notice this here. It's a gift. And so I thank you for your attention on this. Gip Erskine, Values Driven Coaching, and I thank you for the value of your time, and I'll see you next week.